Recall a time when somebody either called you or sought you out, excitedly telling you, "Come and see." It may have been a small child who just discovered a caterpillar on the sidewalk. A few weeks ago, I was walking the dog along the Wabansi Trail, and there was a group of kids playing in the wooded section along the river, and some of them called out to their other friends, "Come, you got to see this." Something they wanted, I don't know what they discovered, God only knows over there, but they wanted their friends to see something. Young ladies, as you've been growing up, is there ever a time when you've come to your mom and dad and wanted them to see something? What was it?
Deer.
A deer, okay. Let's see, anybody else of the young crowd have something to, how about you? Have you ever had a time where you wanted your mom and dad to see something?
That's it.
Okay, a Bears touchdown. He's getting a little coaching from his father, so to speak. But there are times that we have experience in life where we want to share with people something we've discovered, something new. Just a few weeks ago, remember when the frost was on the trees? It really wasn't snow, but it was a frost that covered all the trees, and it lasted like a day and a half. And I was coming over to church, and it was evening, and it was astounding, the frost on all the trees with the Christmas lights on. And I went home and got my camera, and I called another parishioner who has photography as a hobby. I said, "Get your camera, come over here, you gotta see this. It's outstanding beauty to be photographed." Maybe it's a new car, or a new house, or young parents with their first child, grandparents with their first grandchild. There's excitement. You want to share it. But oftentimes with excitement, it wears off. You know, the snow, the frost melted on the trees. The new baby eventually begins to teethe and then turns terrible twos. The new car, after 3 years, 2.5 years, you start to get an annoying phone call. Your warranty is about to run out. Do you want to buy an extended warranty? And I find that so obnoxious that I tell them, if I need to buy an extended warranty, I shouldn't have bought the car in the first place. You know, the new house begins, you know, the ground starts to settle and the cracks appear in the foundation and all that, you know. So a lot of times the excitement we feel about things often wears off. Whether you were baptized as an infant or as an adult, the same can be said about our faith. Sometimes we have that high, that experience, and then after years, it just kind of wears off. Sort of was the case in our first reading today. I had to chuckle at myself as I read commentaries about this reading this week in preparation for today's homily. Because one of the commentaries pointed out that Eli was an old priest. Now, not a Catholic priest, this is Old Testament times. He was an old priest in the Jewish tradition. And they pointed out that it took Eli or took Eli, yes, at least 3 times for Samuel to come and wake him up before he realized that God indeed was calling Samuel, a youth of about 11 years old. He was calling Samuel to be a prophet. So as I chuckled over that, it was kind of like, yeah, you old priests, you get stuck in your ways, and then, the new younger priests, well, they're young. What do they know? Kind of thing. But that's kind of the dynamic going on in that first reading. Have any of you heard the name Carlo Acutis? Okay. I see one young person nodding. I see somebody else. Okay. Your homework. When you go home from Mass, go on YouTube. Look up Carlos Acutis. And it's a 15-minute story. It's well worth seeing. For you see, Carlos was 15 years old when he died of leukemia in 2006. An avid soccer player, avid computer geek, a typical teenager in many ways, but this past October 10th of 2020, Pope Francis beatified him. He is likely on track to become the first millennial saint. I'm not going to tell you why. That you have to watch on television, on YouTube. But God calls in many, many ways. As a matter of fact, our first reading and our gospel reading connect with that sense of call. For you see, in the gospel reading today, our first pope, Peter, was brought to Jesus by his brother, James. James and another unnamed person were disciples of John the Baptist. And when they heard John the Baptist say as Jesus walked by, "Look, there is the Lamb of God," they began to follow Jesus. And it was James who brought his brother to Jesus. Now, if you recall my homily from last week, the baptism of the Lord, I said how all of us who are baptized, disciples, followers of Jesus, we are called to do the same. We are commissioned to bring others to Jesus. The vast majority of us sitting in here this morning were baptized as infants. We had no cognitive knowledge at that time or understanding of what that baptism meant. It's as we grow up and become older that we go through religious education, a school or religious ed program. But oftentimes that's not enough to know Jesus. And so we have a remarkable opportunity for you to live that baptismal calling this week. Alpha begins. On Wednesday, it is a virtual session, an online group. On Thursday, it's in person with social distancing, individually prepared meals, and all the guidelines followed that need to be observed during the COVID pandemic. But the point being, if you're sitting here this morning and you know Jesus, and you are a disciple of Jesus, you're called to invite somebody, to bring somebody to Jesus. And again, you do that through inviting someone to Alpha. But if you yourselves are sitting here and saying, gee, I don't think I really know Jesus. I know things about him. I know things about the church. I know things about God. But do I really feel Jesus in my heart? Do I feel that I can go out and invite someone to come and see, as Jesus said to James when he asked, where do you stay? Come and see. Then Alpha is for you. It's the opportunity to grow in what it really means to be a disciple of Jesus. And so, God calls. God calls the young. God calls the middle-aged. God calls the old. God calls us all. And what he calls us to is to know his son, Jesus. And so, do your homework. Discover Carlo Acutis, a 15-year-old that is likely to become the first millennial saint. And also, discover your own call to bring others to Jesus. And if you haven't, and don't feel you can bring others to Jesus yet, then discover him yourself.